I caught my narcissist mother's fake terminal diagnosis and destroyed her reputation. 10 years later, karma came for us both.
My name is Amber, and I'm 34 years old now. Back when I was 24, I did something that changed the course of my entire life. Something I thought was justice. Something I was absolutely certain was the right thing to do. I was wrong. But let me back up just a little bit, because you need to understand what kind of person my mother was before any of this makes sense. My mother, Patricia, was the kind of woman who could walk into a room and make it about her in under 30 seconds. Not in a charismatic way, in a suffocating way. Growing up, everything was always about her feelings, her needs, her drama. My childhood was just a supporting role in the Patricia show. When I was 7, she told all her friends I had a learning disability to get sympathy. I didn't. When I was 13, she intercepted my acceptance letter to a summer art program because she didn't want me gone for 6 weeks. She told me I hadn't gotten in. I only found out years later when the program director asked my high school counselor why I never showed up. By the time I was 18, I'd learned to just keep my head down and count the days until I could leave. And I did leave. I went to college 3 states away, got a degree in graphic design, and started building a life that didn't revolve around her constant need for attention and control. I thought I'd finally escaped. Then came the phone call. I was 24, living in a tiny apartment in Portland, doing freelance work and actually feeling happy for the first time in my life. It was a Tuesday evening, and I was eating leftover Thai food when my phone lit up with my Aunt Linda's name. Amber, she said, and her voice was shaking. It's your mother. She has cancer. Everything stopped. What? I could barely get the word out. Stage 3 pancreatic cancer. She just got the diagnosis last week. She didn't want to tell you because she knows how busy you are with work, but honey, it's bad. Really bad. The doctors are saying maybe 6 months to a year if the treatment doesn't work. I felt like someone had punched all the air out of my lungs. Whatever complicated feelings I had about my mother, she was still my mother. And pancreatic cancer is basically a death sentence. Everyone knows that. I booked a flight home that night. When I got back to my hometown in Ohio, the whole family was already rallying around her. My Aunt Linda, my Uncle Robert, my cousins, family friends, neighbors. Everyone was bringing casseroles and offering to drive her to appointments and organizing meal trains. My mother was holding court in the living room when I arrived, looking pale and fragile in a way I'd never seen before. She was wearing a soft pink cardigan, and her hair was pulled back loosely. She looked smaller somehow. "Oh, my baby," she said when she saw me, and she started crying. "You didn't have to come all this way." I hugged her, and for the first time in years, I felt like maybe we could fix things. Maybe this terrible situation would finally bring us closer. Maybe we'd get a chance to have the mother-daughter relationship I'd always wanted. "Of course I came," I said. "I'm here now. Whatever you need." She squeezed my hand. "I'm so scared, Amber. I'm so scared." I moved back home temporarily. I told my freelance clients I was taking a leave of absence for a family emergency. I slept in my old childhood bedroom with the purple walls I'd painted when I was 16, and every morning I woke up ready to help my mother fight this disease, except she didn't seem to be fighting it at all. The first week, I offered to drive her to her oncology appointment. She said Linda was taking her. The second week, I asked to see her treatment plan. She said it was too complicated to explain, and I wouldn't understand all the medical terminology anyway. The third week, I started to notice things, like how she'd tell Aunt Linda she had a treatment on Tuesday. But then I'd see her at the mall on Tuesday afternoon with shopping bags from Macy's, like how she kept saying she was too nauseous to eat, but I'd find empty containers of ice cream hidden in her bathroom trash, like how she never actually seemed to be losing weight, or losing her hair, or showing any of the signs that people going through chemo usually show. I started paying closer attention. One evening, about a month into my stay, I was doing dishes when I overheard her on the phone in the next room. She was talking to someone named Beth. "Oh, you know how it is," she was saying, her voice dramatic. "Some days I can barely get out of bed. The pain is just unbearable, but I have to stay strong for Amber. She's been such an angel, moving back home to take care of me." I stood there with my hands in the soapy water, frozen. "The doctors say I might not make it to Christmas," she continued. "Can you imagine? Not being here for the holidays. I just keep thinking about all the things I'll never get to do. But here's the thing. I'd been there for a month. I'd seen her every single day. And she wasn't acting like someone who might not make it to Christmas. She was acting like someone who was enjoying all the attention. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my old bed staring at the ceiling, and this terrible thought started growing in my mind. A thought I didn't want to have. What if she was lying? No, that was crazy. Who would lie about having cancer? Who would fake a terminal diagnosis for attention? But the more I thought about it, the more the pieces didn't fit. The appointments that never seemed to happen. The treatment she wouldn't let me see. The fact that she looked perfectly healthy despite supposedly having stage 3 pancreatic cancer and undergoing aggressive chemotherapy. I needed to know for sure. The next morning, while my mother was out having coffee with one of her friends, I did something I'm not proud of. I went into her bedroom and started looking through her things. I found her purse first. Inside was a wallet, some makeup, receipts from Target and Starbucks. Nothing medical. No prescription bottles, no appointment cards, nothing. Then I checked her nightstand drawer. Old magazines, hand lotion, a package of batteries. I was about to give up when I saw her laptop sitting on the desk in the corner of her room. My hands were shaking as I opened it. I knew her password. She'd used the same one for everything for years. Patricia, 1971. I pulled up her email, and there it was. An email from 3 months ago. Addressed to Aunt Linda with the subject line, "My big news." I clicked it open. "Linda, I've been thinking about how to get Amber to come home. She barely calls anymore, and I know she's been avoiding me since that argument we had at Christmas. I've decided to tell everyone I have cancer. I know it sounds extreme, but I just need my daughter back in my life. She'll have to come home if she thinks I'm dying. Once she's here and sees how much I need her, maybe we can finally fix our relationship. I need you to back me up on this. Tell everyone you took me to get the diagnosis. I'll handle the rest." I read it 3 times. Then I read it again. My mother had faked cancer. She had faked a terminal illness to manipulate me into coming home. I felt like I was going to throw up. I grabbed my phone and took pictures of the email. Then I went through the rest of her inbox. There were more emails. Emails to different friends and family members, coordinating the story. Emails where she discussed what kind of cancer would be most believable. Emails where she actually seemed excited about all the attention she was getting. There was even an email to herself with a list of symptoms she needed to remember to mention. I sat there on her bed, staring at the laptop screen, and something inside me just broke. All those weeks I'd spent worrying about her. All those nights I'd lain awake wondering if I'd have to watch my mother die. All the guilt I'd felt for every complicated feeling I'd ever had about her. And it was all a lie. She had looked me in the eyes and lied to me about dying. I didn't think. I just acted. I forwarded every single one of those emails to myself. Then I screenshotted her entire inbox related to the fake diagnosis. I saved everything to a cloud drive. When my mother came home that afternoon, I was sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open. "Oh good, you're still here," she said brightly. "I was thinking we could watch a movie together tonight. Something light, you know? I need the distraction." "I know," I said. "Know what, honey? I know you're lying. I know you don't have cancer. I know this whole thing is fake." The color drained from her face. For a second, she just stared at me. Then she laughed. Actually laughed. "Amber, what are you talking about? I think the stress is getting to you. Maybe you should—" "I read your emails," I said. My voice was surprisingly steady. "I have screenshots. I have everything." She stopped laughing. "You went through my private emails?" Her voice shifted, became sharp. "You invaded my privacy? You faked cancer." I stood up and I was shaking now. "You made me think you were dying. You manipulated everyone who cares about you. And you're mad that I invaded your privacy? Amber, you don't understand. No, you don't understand. This is over, all of it. I'm done. Wait, please, just let me explain." But I was already walking out. That night, I stayed at a hotel near the airport, and I made a decision. I was going to tell everyone. Every single person who had brought her casseroles and driven her to fake appointments and donated money to her fake treatment fund. Everyone deserved to know the truth. I started with Aunt Linda. I called her from my hotel room and told her everything. At first, she didn't believe me. She actually defended my mother, said I must have misunderstood, said my mother would never do something like that. So I sent her the screenshots. There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. Then I heard her voice, small and broken. "Oh my God, I'm sorry," I said. "I'm so sorry you're finding out this way." "I helped her," Linda whispered. "I told everyone about the diagnosis. I organized the meal train. I set up the fundraiser. Oh my God, I helped her lie to everyone." Within 24 hours, the truth had spread through my entire hometown. I didn't have to do much else. Aunt Linda told Uncle Robert, who told his wife, who told their church group. Someone posted about it on Facebook. Someone else shared the screenshots. It went viral in our small community. My mother's phone started ringing off the hook. People demanding explanations. People demanding their money back from the fundraiser. People who felt betrayed and humiliated. The local newspaper even picked up the story. Local woman allegedly fakes cancer diagnosis to gain sympathy. It was everywhere. I flew back to Portland and tried to return to my normal life, but I couldn't stop checking social media to see what was happening. I couldn't stop reading the comments. "She's a monster. Who fakes cancer? She should be ashamed of herself. She should be in jail." My mother tried calling me 50, 60, 70 times. I didn't answer. She left voicemails, crying, begging me to listen to her side of the story. She sent texts saying I'd ruined her life, that I'd destroyed her, that I didn't understand how lonely she was. I deleted every single one without listening or reading to the end. I told myself she deserved everything she got. She'd lied to everyone. She'd manipulated and deceived people who loved her. This was just consequences. This was justice. A few weeks later, my mother left town. She moved to Arizona, where she didn't know anyone, where no one knew her story. Aunt Linda told me she'd gotten a job at a call center and was living in a small apartment alone. Good, I said. She made her choices. But Aunt Linda's voice was sad when she said, "Amber, I know what she did was terrible, but she's completely isolated now. She has no one. That's what happens when you fake cancer," I said. And I believed it. I really did. For 10 years, I believed I'd done the right thing. I moved on with my life. I built my design business. I made friends. I dated, had relationships, broke up, dated again. I went to therapy and worked through my childhood trauma. I got a dog named Charlie. I bought a condo. I didn't talk to my mother once in those 10 years. Not a single word. Sometimes I'd think about her, wonder how she was doing, but then I'd remember what she'd done, and the anger would come flooding back, and I'd push the thoughts away. Life was better without her in it, I told myself. Simpler, cleaner. Then, 3 months ago, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was a Tuesday evening again. Funny enough. History repeating itself. I was working late on a client project when my phone rang. "Is this Amber Chen?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes. This is Rebecca Martinez from Mercy Hospital in Phoenix. I'm calling about Patricia Chen. She listed you as her emergency contact." My heart started pounding. What happened? "She was brought into the emergency room yesterday afternoon. She's had a severe stroke. She's stable now, but she's asking for you." I couldn't speak. "Ms. Chen, are you still there?" Yes, I'm here. I know this must be difficult, but if you're able to come, I think it would mean a lot to her. She's been quite distressed." I hung up and sat there in my home office, staring at the wall. I didn't want to go. I really didn't want to go. But something, guilt, curiosity, maybe just the need for closure, made me book a flight to Phoenix the next morning. When I walked into her hospital room, I almost didn't recognize her. My mother was 55 years old, but she looked 70. Her hair was completely gray now, pulled back in a thin ponytail. She'd lost weight, a lot of it. Her face was drawn and tired, and one side of her mouth drooped slightly from the stroke. She was lying in the hospital bed, looking small and fragile in a way that reminded me of how she'd looked when she was faking cancer 10 years ago, except this time it was real. When she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. "Amber," she said, her speech slightly slurred. "You came." I stood in the doorway, not moving closer. "The hospital called. I didn't think you would come. I know you hate me." "I don't hate you," I said, and I was surprised to find it was true. I didn't hate her. I didn't feel much of anything anymore. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm so sorry for what I did. I've wanted to say that for 10 years, but I didn't think you'd ever want to hear it." "Why did you do it?" I asked. "Why did you fake cancer?" She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I was lonely," she said. "After you left for college, after you moved away, I just felt so empty, and I knew I'd pushed you away with all my behavior over the years. I knew I'd been a terrible mother. I didn't know how to fix it, so I thought if you believed I was dying, you'd have to come home, and then I'd have another chance. You could have just apologized," I said. "You could have just told me you wanted a relationship. I know that now, but I was so afraid you'd say no. The cancer thing, it gave me control. It forced your hand." She closed her eyes. "I never meant for it to go as far as it did. I thought I'd tell you the truth after a few weeks. But then everyone got involved, and there was the fundraiser, and I didn't know how to stop it without everyone finding out, so I just kept going. I felt numb listening to this. And then you found out anyway," she continued, "and you told everyone, and my whole life fell apart. I lost everything. My friends, my family, my home, my reputation. I moved here to Phoenix to start over, but I never really could. I was always the woman who faked cancer. That followed me everywhere. You brought that on yourself, I said. I know. I did. I'm not asking you to forgive me or feel sorry for me. I just wanted you to know that I understand what I did was unforgivable. We sat in silence for a while. A nurse came in to check her vitals, then left again. The doctors say I'll need help when I'm discharged, my mother said finally. The stroke has affected my right side. I'll need physical therapy, someone to help me with daily tasks for a while. She wasn't asking me to help. She was just stating a fact. Don't you have anyone here? I asked. I have some acquaintances, people from work, but no one close. I haven't let anyone get close in a long time. I should have left right then. I should have said I was sorry this happened to her, but I couldn't help, and then walked out and never looked back. But I didn't. I'll stay for a few days, I heard myself say. Help you get set up with home care services or whatever you need. Hope flickered across her face. Really? Don't read into it, I said quickly. I'm not suddenly okay with what you did, but you're sick, and you need help, and I can spare a few days. I stayed for 2 weeks. I helped her get discharged from the hospital. I found her a home health aide. I made sure her apartment was set up for someone with limited mobility. I organized her medications and scheduled her follow-up appointments. I didn't do it out of love. I did it because it was the right thing to do, and because some part of me couldn't handle the guilt of leaving her alone and helpless, even after everything she'd done. During those 2 weeks, we didn't talk much about the past. Mostly we were quiet. Sometimes I'd catch her watching me with this sad, wistful expression, like she wanted to say something but didn't know how. On my last day there, I was packing up my stuff when she spoke from her recliner. I saw what you did, she said. I turned around. What? After the truth came out, after you exposed me, I saw what happened to you online. My stomach dropped. I don't know what you're talking about, but I did know. Of course I knew. The Facebook posts, she said. People calling you a terrible daughter. People saying you were cruel for humiliating your own mother publicly. People saying you should have handled it privately, that you destroyed me for revenge. That wasn't most people, I said. Most people supported me, but some didn't. And those comments hurt you. I know they did. She was right. They had hurt me. A lot. For every 10 people who said I'd done the right thing, there was one person who said I was vindictive and cruel. One person who said I should be ashamed for destroying my own mother, regardless of what she'd done. One person who said I clearly had issues with my mother and this was just revenge. Those comments had haunted me for months after it happened. I'd stopped going on social media for almost a year because of them. The thing is, my mother continued, they were right. What I did was terrible, unforgivable. But what you did to me in response, the way you made sure everyone knew, the way you destroyed my entire life, that wasn't just justice, Amber. That was revenge. I felt my face flush with anger. You don't get to— I'm not saying I didn't deserve consequences, she interrupted. I did, but you made sure those consequences were as severe and public and humiliating as possible. You didn't just want me to be held accountable. You wanted me to suffer. Because you deserved it. My voice was loud now. You lied to me about dying. You manipulated everyone. You took people's money. I know all of that, and I deserve to be exposed. But Amber, you didn't have to tell the newspaper. You didn't have to make sure it went viral. You could have told the family, gotten the fundraiser money returned, and left it at that. But you wanted to make sure I was completely destroyed. You wanted to make sure I'd never recover from it. I stared at her, speechless. And you succeeded, she said softly. You absolutely succeeded. My life ended that day 10 years ago. I've been living in the ashes of it ever since. This isn't fair, I said. My voice was shaking. You don't get to make yourself the victim here. I'm not the victim. We're both victims of each other. That's what I've realized over the past 10 years. What I did to you was horrible, but what you did to me in response was also horrible. And now we're both living with the consequences of the terrible things we did to each other. I couldn't listen to anymore. I grabbed my bag and headed for the door. Amber, she called after me. Thank you for staying these 2 weeks. I know it wasn't easy, and I want you to know, whatever happens from here, I'm grateful you came at all. That's more than I deserved. I left without saying goodbye. On the plane back to Portland, I couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said. Was she right? Had I gone too far? I'd told myself for 10 years that I'd done the right thing, that I'd simply exposed the truth and let the chips fall where they may. But if I was being honest with myself, really honest, I knew I'd wanted more than that. I'd wanted her to hurt the way she'd hurt me. I'd wanted her to feel the betrayal and humiliation I'd felt. I'd wanted her to lose everything, the way I'd felt like I'd lost everything when I found out the truth. And she'd lost everything. Her home, her community, her relationships, her reputation, everything. And I'd made sure of it. I'd forwarded those emails knowing exactly what would happen. I'd known it would spread. I'd known it would ruin her. And some part of me had wanted that. When I got home, I couldn't settle back into my normal routine. I kept thinking about my mother in that hospital bed, alone in a city where no one really knew her, recovering from a stroke with no family around except the daughter who destroyed her life a decade ago. I thought about what my therapist had said to me years ago. You can't heal from something you won't let go of. I'd thought I'd let go of my anger toward my mother, but I hadn't. I'd been carrying it for 10 years, using it to justify what I'd done, using it to keep myself from feeling guilty. 2 days after I got back, I was going through old boxes in my storage closet, looking for some client files, when I found a folder I'd forgotten about. Inside were printouts of all my mother's emails from 10 years ago, the evidence I'd gathered, the proof of her deception. I'd kept them all this time. Why had I kept them? What purpose did they serve now? I flipped through the pages, reading her words again. The emails where she'd planned the fake diagnosis, the emails where she'd discussed symptoms, the emails where she'd coordinated with Aunt Linda, and then I saw one I didn't remember seeing before. It was an email my mother had written but never sent. It was in her drafts folder, dated the day before I discovered the truth. The subject line was, "To Amber." I sat down on the floor of my closet and read it. "Dear Amber, I need to tell you the truth. I don't have cancer. I lied about being sick because I was desperate to have you in my life again, and I didn't know any other way to make that happen. I know this is unforgivable. I know you'll probably never speak to me again once you know the truth, but I can't keep lying to you. Every time I see your face, see how worried you are, how much pain my lie is causing you, I hate myself more. You don't deserve this. You deserve a mother who tells you the truth, even when the truth is ugly. The truth is that I'm a lonely, selfish woman who drove away everyone who ever cared about her, including her own daughter. The truth is that I've been a terrible mother your entire life, and instead of fixing that, I've just kept making making it worse. The truth is that I don't deserve your forgiveness or your time or your love, but I'm going to tell you anyway, because it's the only right thing I can do at this point. Tomorrow, I'm going to sit you down and tell you everything. I'm going to tell the whole family. I'm going to face the consequences of my actions. I'm terrified. I know I'm going to lose everything, but I can't lose myself anymore. And that's what I'm doing by continuing this lie. I hope someday you can understand why I did this. Even if you can never forgive me for it, I love you, Amber. I always have, even when I showed it in the worst possible ways. Mom, I read it 3 times, tears streaming down my face. She'd been planning to tell me. She'd been planning to confess before I found out. I'd just discovered the truth one day too. Soon, and I'd made sure she paid for it in the worst possible, way before she ever had the chance to make things right. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything. About the woman my mother was, about the woman I'd become in response to her, about how we'd both hurt each other in ways that left permanent scars, about how revenge and justice aren't always the same thing, even when they look identical from the outside. The next morning, I called my mother. She answered on the 3rd ring. Amber, I found something, I said. An email you wrote but never sent, from 10 years ago. There was a long silence. Oh, you were going to tell me? You were planning to confess? Yes, she said quietly. I was. I'd worked up the courage. But then you found out before I could, and she trailed off, and I destroyed you before you could make things right. You didn't know, she said. You had no way of knowing I was planning to come clean. You just knew what I'd done. But I also knew exactly what would happen when I told everyone, I said. I knew it would ruin your life. And I did it anyway. I wanted it to ruin your life. Amber, I'm sorry, I said, and the words came out in a rush. I'm sorry for going as far as I did. You deserved consequences, but I made sure those consequences were as devastating as possible. I made sure you'd lose everything. And I did it because I was angry and hurt, and I wanted you to suffer. And I'm sorry for that. I heard her crying on the other end of the line. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for saying that. I don't know if we can ever have a relationship, I said. I don't know if I can ever fully trust you again. But I don't want to spend the rest of my life carrying this anger around. It's been 10 years and I'm tired. Me too, she said. I'm tired too. We talked for a long time that day. Really talked, maybe for the first time in our lives. We talked about her loneliness, about my childhood, about all the ways we'd failed each other over the years. We talked about the fake cancer, about what had driven her to do something so desperate and destructive. We talked about what I'd done in response, and how we'd both been living with the fallout ever since. We didn't fix everything. We didn't suddenly become a perfect mother and daughter. We didn't erase the past or pretend none of it had happened, but we started to understand each other in a way we never had before. Over the next few months, I visited her in Phoenix twice more. We started talking on the phone every couple of weeks. It was awkward at first, stilted, both of us navigating this new territory carefully. My mother started therapy. She told me about working through her narcissistic tendencies, about learning to recognize her patterns of manipulation and control. She told me it was the hardest thing she'd ever done, confronting who she really was. I told her about my own therapy, about working through the trauma of my childhood, about learning to set boundaries and recognize when I was acting out of hurt rather than wisdom. We were honest with each other, maybe for the first time ever. Last month, my mother called me with news. She'd reconnected with Aunt Linda. I wrote her a letter. My mother told me, a real apology. Not asking for forgiveness, just acknowledging what I'd done and how I'd hurt her. And she wrote back. What did she say? She said she wasn't ready to have me back in her life fully, but she was willing to talk. So we talked for hours. And it was painful, but it was also good. Really good. I felt something shift in my chest. Not quite hope, but something close to it. I'm proud of you, I said. And I meant it. I'm trying to make amends, she said, to everyone I hurt. It's probably too late for most of them, but I have to try. I have to at least try to make things right. Last week, I got a package in the mail. Inside was a scrapbook. My mother had put together a collection of photos from my childhood. Not the staged perfect photos she'd always preferred, but the real ones. Me at 7, covered in mud from playing in the backyard. Me at 13, laughing with my best friend. Me at 16, painting my bedroom walls purple. There was a note tucked inside. Amber, I spent so much of your childhood trying to make everything about me that I missed seeing who you really were. These photos remind me of the daughter I had, the one I was too self-absorbed to appreciate at the time. I can't get those years back, but I wanted you to have these memories. The real ones. Love, Mom. I'm 34 now. My mother is 55. We talk every week. Sometimes we argue. Sometimes old patterns resurface, and we have to stop and remind ourselves to do better. It's not perfect. It's not what I imagined a mother-daughter relationship should be, but it's honest, and it's real, and we're both trying. The karma that came for us wasn't what I expected. It wasn't some external force punishing us for our sins. It was just the natural consequence of two people hurting each other, and then having to live with what they'd done. My mother lived with the loneliness and isolation of what she'd done. I lived with the guilt and emptiness of revenge disguised as justice. And then, after 10 years, we both finally got tired of living that way. Sometimes I think about that day I found those emails, about how different things might have been if I'd waited just one more day, if I'd given her the chance to confess on her own terms, but I can't change the past. Neither of us can. All we can do is be honest about what happened, acknowledge the pain we caused each other, and decide whether we want to keep carrying that pain forward or try to build something different. Yesterday, my mother called me with an update on her physical therapy. Her speech has improved a lot, and she's regaining more movement in her right arm. I'm thinking about volunteering, she told me, at a cancer support center. They need people to help with administrative work, making calls, organizing donations. Wow, I said. Are you sure you're ready for that? No, she admitted, but I think I need to face it. I need to be around the thing I lied about, see what it really means to people who actually have cancer. Maybe it'll help me understand the magnitude of what I did. That sounds really hard, I said. It will be, but I think I need hard right now. I think I need to sit in the discomfort of my actions instead of running from it. After we hung up, I sat on my couch with Charlie curled up next to me, and I thought about growth and accountability and the messy, complicated work of becoming better people. I don't know what happens next for me and my mother. I don't know if we'll ever have a fully healed relationship or if the scars from what we did to each other will always be there. But I do know this. We're both trying. We're both willing to look at the worst parts of ourselves and work on being better. And maybe that's all karma really is. Not some cosmic force doling out punishment, but just the mirror that makes us finally see ourselves clearly. And then deciding what we want to do with that reflection. The story doesn't have a neat ending. Real life never does. But I'm learning to be okay with that. My mother mother faked a terminal illness to manipulate me into coming home. I destroyed her life in response. We both paid for what we did. And now, 10 years later, we're both trying to build something better from the wreckage. That's the truth of it. The messy, complicated, painful truth. And maybe that's enough. That's all, folks. Thanks for watching till the end. Subscribe for daily updates.